Right.
Perfect.
Fabian, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm on the brand team at Atlassian, and I'm trying to gather information about, how teams work once they're on a distributed workforce. It's new for some companies, it's partially new for others, and it's wildly the same for other companies despite the pandemic. And what we thought we could do to help not just Atlassians, but just customers in general is talk to people who have been doing this for a while, or maybe who haven't been doing it for too long and want to share the things that they've learned right away. And I noticed some of your posts on Atlassian community. You've got some great things to say, and I'm just excited to chat with you about what you've learned. So to start us off, a softball question. Tell me who you are and who you work with, the setup with the way that you communicate with your teams, just basics to learn about you and the team.
So my name is Fabian Lopez. I'm from Argentina, working in the United States. And for the last 12 years, I was working semi-remote. I live in California, but our company is based in Florida, in Juno Beach, Florida. So one of the great things from our company was that since the beginning, they basically using notebooks for all of us. So we are kind of very portable team. We don't have desktop computers. So that's a lot of flexibility from the get-go, from the last 12 years. So that allows me to work from home. And actually, thanks to the tool from Atlassian, Confluence, and Jira, basically was very easy to work from home. My focus was community development for open source. So we use Atlassian, and so we interact with my team through the tools, and then we kind of consolidate meetings. And I usually go like every other month or 1 week per month to the company. And that's when we have kind of the in-person meetings. Okay. So our company has a lot of people that are in our main office, but a lot of us are also remote.
Got it. So your setup is you yourself as an individual work from home, but the company has other people that work from home and then some people that work from the office. So it's a bit of a hybrid of both.
Yes, that's correct. For many years. And they had some satellite offices with small groups, like maybe 5-10 people in different areas. But the main offices, we have 3 buildings in Juno Beach, North Palm Beach area.
Got it. So it's actually 3 different levels. It's individuals at home, it's a main headquarters office with people working from the office, and then pockets of small teams at other local
small offices. Yes, they are geographically or related to a product, or maybe they're coming from acquisitions, and they keep the groups working in that area.
Got it. Great. And so because you yourself have to work from a distance, you're not co-located with anyone in the local offices or the headquarters, even though you go visit once a month. What are some things that you've noticed have helped communication, have helped keep the team stay together, or what makes it work well, even though you're not in the office with everyone? What processes, culture, community building, anything that you could share with us helps?
I think the communication tool like instant messaging, Skype, but we're using Teams now. We use Slack. Having a good desktop phone or a good phone communications for meetings, good audio. The company was providing for those remote equipment that we need in our home, the same like they will have in the office. Like we have printers, we have extra monitors, we have the phone. So we have a setup that is similar to the setup to those that are working at the office. So that's very critical for me. So I can have my home office basically my home, but I have the same kind of benefits that the people that goes to the office have.
Awesome.
The other thing is basically it requires more team collaborations and let's say on the note taking, more respect for time zones. Sometimes when you're co-located, all the teams at the office at 9, so you can set up the meeting at 9 a.m. But some people, they forget they have some coworkers that are 3 hours behind.
Yeah.
So for me living in California, the rest of the team in Florida, so for them it's great to have a meeting at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. To me means 5 a.m. or
that's no
6.
good.
So that's one of the stuff that you need to have in consideration when you start having remote participants.
Got it.
So let's move the hours maybe afternoon so we can have a kind of good kind of common time zone. So,
Fabian, so I'm hearing two big insights here. The first one is that access to tools and platforms should be the same. So you said access to your setups, your laptops or whatever equipment you need at the office, you also have at home. And then access to instant messaging, whatever, so that you can continue to talk as if you were in person. It makes it seem like you're already in the office using all these tools. And then number two, I'm hearing the way that you're communicating with other people's work styles in mind. So with the time zone example, it sounds like just because you're used to everyone having the same time zone, if you're co-located, doesn't mean that's true when everyone's distributed. So just be mindful of all of that. So for that second insight, how do you manage that? Do you raise your hand and say like, hey, that time's not going to be good for me? Or are there agreements that the team has in uncovering these kind of preferences?
It depends. Sometimes I just woke up earlier and attend to those meetings because maybe I'm the only one and the whole team is co-located. I know it's better for a team to have an early meeting because of the decision-making process. So sometimes I just attend to those meetings. And sometimes I ask, can we do it afternoon? So it's going to be 9 a.m. for me or something like that, 10 a.m. It depends on the content, depends on the team, the flexibility, and how many of those are remote. And sometimes they don't have a way to do it in different time, and I have to just go and asynchronous participation, maybe after hours, check the notes and add my comments. But it's basically raising your hand, trying to make them hear you, but sometimes you are not able to change that because it's a huge group. And then sometimes also, I made a mistake myself because when I went to the office, I forget the remote people. Like as soon as you enter the office, you start leaving the corporate environment, say, hey, let's do it tomorrow at 9 a.m. Totally forget that 9 a.m. for me is not 6 a.m. for other people, or 5 a.m. for other people. So I'm making those mistakes because you are in a co-located environment, you forget about remote. It's very easy to forget about that. Because in your mind, it's still your 9 to 5, or 9 to 6, or 8 to 5. So you kind of forget about, oops, I was complaining about this and I'm doing the same. And that happened to me. So I set a goal, say every time I'm in Florida, whatever I am, trying to set the time for meetings afternoon. So.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, because even though you're aware that there are remote workers or people that aren't in the office, you yourself being one of them, as soon as you start working from the office during your once a month meetups, it's easy to slide into that culture again. Is there a way that can counter that? Is there a way that your team has been helpful in reminding, like, wait, we're not a team that's based in one location plus other people everywhere. We're a team that's all over the world. So we need to put people in mind first. How do you keep that in mind and keep everyone?
I think that we were talking yesterday with one of your coworkers in Atlassian about different products to understand more your team members. Let's say it could be great when you start adding people to the meetings if they can see next to the name the time zone or the location at least. Remote. So because sometimes you have people and say, we're good, we're all here local in Florida, that's good, we don't have to worry about it. But it should be great as soon as you add the person, you have to kind of rely on your memory, but see that, oops, I need to add John, and John is actually living in Canada or living in Washington. So that basically will help you as organizer of meetings, like a red flag right there, and say, oh, wait a minute. You're like a time management tool, basically. But if you see all the time manager or calendar tools you're using, you add names and send invitation, that should be some kind of triggering there. You have people that's outside your time zone or different color or whatever that you can remember and maybe find a way to change the time of the meetings. So those things that you rely on your memory, but it's easy to make mistakes.
I really like that.
So
I think that it's important. I think some people have mentioned, oh, we just have a Confluence page and we'll just list out, everyone's time zones. But you'd have to go to the Confluence page to remember that. So just labeling that in your profile or labeling it in the instant message keeps it top of mind so you don't have to go and find it. I think that's a really helpful tip.
Yeah, and that's a great feature because basically we have the pages for team in agreement, blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, when you are in the world of trying to deliver software or building stuff, you create the meetings and enter the names who needs to be in the meeting. But if you can have like next to it a little things, is the location, whatever, using like a enhanced user profile, that helps a lot to the organizer.
So basically, showcase the helpful information when you want to see it versus just off somewhere else. Cool. I asked this question a lot, and I've gotten different answers where the pandemic has changed the way that companies work, either because of location or because of what people have access to. Has COVID-19 changed the way your team communicates, or has it made it easier or harder for distributed team members to communicate?
In my case, because I was remote, it basically helped me a lot in the sense that I know when the meetings are done for all of us. Before the informal communication was a problem because they finish the meeting, but they stay in the room talking. And sometimes they change some of the decision we made during the meeting, but you are not notified, they're not captured on the meeting notes. So when you go to the next meeting to show your show and tell, say, oh no, we forgot to tell you that we actually decide to go in a different direction, and you waste hours of development or writing or doing stuff because that was the agreement during the meeting. So that was the danger of having the mix between local teams, co-located teams, and remote teams in the same mix. So as part of the team in agreement, they should be, hey, when we finish a meeting, it's finished for all of us. We are not allowed to continue talking about the topic after the meeting because we're losing half of the audience. And if we do changes, be sure you kind of compile those changes and add it to the meeting notes. So those that are remote and left earlier, they can go back and get some updates. So that's one of the things that I think benefits in the sense that all of us are in the same boat now. It's kind of the same for us. And some of the people also saw and noticed what happened. And they say, yeah, we agree now, how hard it was to miss that conversation. The other change was that was one of the other changes. Actually, a lot of informal communications, discussions and coffee breaks during lunchtime or breakfast. Yeah. So sometimes I think a bunch of people is missing that kind of stuff because that's also build a personal relationship. More is more dry. The informal conversation space is gone with all of this working from home because you unless you have a phone call and chat, you're missing those social moments when you go and have lunch together and talk about weather or sports or whatever. You want to do that through Teams or Skype or Slack. So that's one of the changes that I also saw with this pandemic. All of our members are working from home now. We're still start opening a little bit the office. But it was very, for those that were co-located, a lot of working or having lunch together. It's kind of building relationship and friendships as part of the working world.
So you brought up two different types of examples, and I want to just dive into them. In the first one, you talked about, okay, so everyone is starting to have empathy for each other because they know what it feels like now to work not from the same office. Yes. And I loved the tip, by the way, of when the meeting is done, in that for those that are remote and can no longer access communication, like it's not fair to them if the conversation continues and they're not in the know. And now that everyone is working from home, you know for sure that those conversations aren't continuing, and that's great. So empathy building. And then the second thing you've mentioned as a result of the pandemic is the culture, the social camaraderie. How do you overcome not being able to grab a coffee together, grab a drink together, sharing a meal together? What do you do to keep that social connection going if everyone is not in the same place?
I think just more casual, or you have a phone call, but it's not intense as it was before. Unless you actually trigger the purpose for that, let's do a informal casual call or whatever. But I think we all missing that personal human interaction, physical interaction, in the sense that you're walking and say, hey, how you doing? Hello, how's your baby? Whatever. Right. You're not going to start a meeting to talk about how's your baby. That was casual. impromptu conversation right away when you see the person.
Right.
You look great today. We were doing blah, blah, blah. So that kind of stuff, I think that we are all missing that kind of situation. But sometimes when we go to meetings and we join earlier, we have the opportunity to do some kind of relaxed chat and conversation while we're waiting for the other people. So that's a good tip. Join earlier and chat with the coworkers before the actual meeting starts. So,
yes.
But yeah, that's kind of interesting situation. I think a bunch of people would like to go back to the office for that purpose, but at the same time, productivity also for the same purpose has increased because more people is focused on the stuff they have to do and just they don't have a lot of interaction, informal interaction. When you are at the office working, sometimes people walk to your office or your desk and ask questions. You start engaging in conversations that were not part of your day plan. And then say, oops, I wasted or invested 30 minutes of my time just talking about whatever. I need to go back and finish my stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right that you can try to be intentional about having casual calls to catch up, but you just don't have that by chance meeting people that you do when you're in person. And so that's missed a little bit. And I like what you said too, that, as the offices are starting to open up, some people will go back for that. And I kind of want to call out that just because you work on a distributed team doesn't mean you can't have people still physically see each other in person, because sometimes that just really strengthens the camaraderie. That makes sense. Cool. You seem like you have a lot of experience because you're always working from, you're in California with some people in Florida and some people just all over the world. So you have experience, but not everybody has your experience. Do you ever notice a difference in the way that the people that have not worked on a distributed team, how they communicate and what might be tough for them, but what might not be as tough for you? Do you see?
One of the main challenges is to feel lonely, be alone. It's really, you need to have a kind of balance in your mindset. It's really hard to be, because you're in the computer in one room working. The computer is like a little window you open to see your coworker. Sometimes the days are tough because you don't see your email inbox moving. You're not receiving emails, and you start, oh man, what's going on? They forgot about me. So you start entering a panic situation, and sometimes you notice the manager are relying more on the people they can see on the kitchen or the coffee, and they forget about you, and they start smoothly assigning work to other people. So you need to be aware of that situation. You need to be aware of your workload and the communication with the manager. I think remote team, distributed team requires more responsibility from the manager. Sometimes it's easy to blame the employee for the lack of performance, but I kind of like to ask, how about the manager? Was the manager checking on the employee increase, paying more attention? Or was the manager focused on the people that he can see on the hallway and forgot those remote? So to me, working as remote and in managing people, I was more consistent in that kind of view and say, hey, I know you're remote and I know you're doing ABC, but do you want to do more stuff? Trying to assign jobs so the person can have more exposure, and also be sure that I can mention my team in meetings and engage them to be more exposed, because they can kind of, it's like a dim in the light, it's kind of fading out, and then soon, what's going on with that guy? I don't know. I don't hear about him, and we're still paying the salary, and maybe the guy is not working at all. So it requires a lot of discipline from the actual remote employee, but also from the actual manager, the person who is managing the team. Be sure you keep them involved. Be sure you give them assignments or check, and be sure you expose them to the rest of the company.
So just to say that back to you, on the one hand, there's accountability that needs to happen, different levels of accountability, but on the other, it's how information is being communicated. You can't just assume just because, when you were in the office, you'll be able to pull people in, or like, oh, I just had this meeting, I can tell you about it. When everyone is distributed, it's not as easy for those things to come up. So we need to be intentional about asking, how did that go? If you're a manager or a team member, or managing up and out of like, I want to just share what just happened, because you may not know what's going on. So
and recognition also. They say, hey, let me show what Jones did. Jones is working from his office in Kentucky, but let me show you the stuff that he developed. So be More when you have like a matrix organization, that's kind of dangerous too. And you have people reporting to you, but working in different projects. So we use Confluence like awards. And I was running the PMO office. So I had project managers. And I told my project managers, guys, you're working with people from different departments. It's very important for the supervisor to know how they work. So we had the awards plugin in Confluence. It was Karma before. So just add kudos, add medals, or mention them so that the supervisor can see, oh, I assigned that person to that project and the project manager is happy with that person and he is basically exposing that person. So it's a team effort. We need to help each other to be noticeable when we are remote.
That's such a good note of, it's not just about information sharing. It's not just about making sure everyone's up to date, but celebrations, recognition. And so whether that's icons or medals or just verbally saying so-and-so did this and it was really great, we need to keep that going. How else do you, what other rituals or what other patterns of celebrating or recognizing other people?
Well, before that, I would like to say the definition of seeing your employee. So when you're walking, you can see, oh, that person is on the chair. You don't know that person is warming up the chair, just staring at the screen, right? But you saw that person is on the screen. So that person doesn't have to show to you the outcome because you saw that person at the office. So you're good. On the other side, for those that are remote, you're always asking for stuff to show. Because the only way you can see is not if it was sitting on the chair, was that person producing something? Was that show me your outcome? So sometimes it's unfair in the way you see your team members. So you see them physically and you're check. I know he's there, but for the remote people, you know that, so you're asking for the results. So that sometimes is an imbalance, and again, it's a more stress sometimes for the managers how they can see. So it has to be a common way of measuring performance on your team members. So,
it's probably a good tip for distributed teams or non-distributed teams alike in that, you know, if everybody is reporting to one person, but they don't work with each other, they just might not know what other people are doing. And so simply just putting that on display so that everyone is aware of what everyone's working on or just like how they're doing that they're working, period. I think that's a good tip in general for teams. That's excellent.
And I like to feature when I do, basically when we implement the Confluence, and I'm just going through and kind of chairman of the Atlassian steering committee, trying to be sure all the teams are using the tools, etc. So when I navigate and see a page that was well developed, I enter feature label, and I have a page where I have all the feature pages. So basically, just trying to share all the other best practices. We create like a webinars where other people show how they use the tools, do the stuff. So to me, that's very important in the sense that it shows how the team is participating, despite of the location, how they're doing the stuff.
Yes.
And that was great for me in the sense that I was kind of learn a lot during the last 12 years. Those moments, they actually need to be emotionally very strong to be. Sometimes you feel really bad because you kind of, what am I going to do today? So you need to very project management, a lot of project management. But the tools, the collaboration tools are very important. They all use in the same way. Have some teaming agreement in place. How we're going to take notes, who's going to take notes, the style of notes, how we add modification, how we notify changes, how we escalate or propagate the information. That's very critical.
You know, you're mentioning a lot of different types of rituals, like how to escalate, working agreements, what your team is supposed to be focused on. How does that come about? Is there just a checklist and everyone needs to go through it? Is it just assumed that the project manager or the team lead will do all of these things? Like, how do you work together to figure out what you need to document and share as an agreement?
So one of the first steps is basically sharing best practices. So if the team come up with an idea, try to give them the place to show that. We call knowledge burst. Basically, we have like a webinars every week. We invite different teams to show the cool stuff they're doing. And other teams say, yeah, that sounds good. So they can start adopting those things. So to me, basically, give them the chance to share the good ideas and practices to other team members. My concept of collaboration is not the effort of one person. Collaboration, as the word say, is a little piece is melting together. I always talk about the movies that when they see the mercurium or you see a little stuff and they start merging together, or the drop of water when they get to the next one, they merge and
they all come together. Yeah.
Come together. So my goal is do your own little things, but be sure it's part of the context of the overall picture. In that way, when we see every person is doing, just enter a comment or check you did the task on the meeting notes. That is a very simple task, but allow all of us to see what's going on. So, and then when we need to be sure that the other team members are aware of the situation, create a newsletter. Provide them kind of the weekly newsletter, monthly newsletter, depending on the frequency you need, but be sure you push information to them, or at least flag those items they need to be aware of. As an example, you're going to change the way you're doing meetings or the objectives or whatever of the team. Be sure to send a newsletter. One of the issues we have as Atlassian steering committee, as an example, we say we have to train. So we did the training, say check, we did the training, and say, but that is not a bi-directional communication. On our side, we feel okay because we complete the training. But the question is, how many people attended? Do we have a confirmation they got that concept? Do we have a kind of reply say, got it? So it has to be a feedback to be sure you close the loop. If not, it's just one directional pushing information, but you don't care if they get or not. And that's when you start escalating and increasing the issues and problems because of the lack of the loop. You're not closing the loop.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest challenges, to be sure the receptor of information is acknowledging the communication.
So important. You're saying like team collaboration or teamwork, it's not just one person doing something, and it's not just checking the box that you've attended a training or gone to a meeting. What do you do afterwards? How can we verify, or how can we take what we've said we've done and applied it? Or how can we take what we said we've information that we've received and know that it's going to do something now? So you're calling them feedback loops, and I'm wondering also if they're considered just ways to move forward, because it's one thing to say that you're doing something to help the team, and another to say that it's actually helped the team. Like, where's the evidence, and how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, it has to be actionable data, actionable. It has to be a trigger of pushing forward. So not just to, let me tell you about this, ABC. Oh, cool, that sounds great. And that's it, they never use it. No, I'm going to check next time. Are you using the ABC that we talk about that? No, I really didn't understand. Okay, let's talk about it again.
Yeah.
So it's not like a pushing the concept, follow up with that. Be sure you check, you have checking points to see what's going on.
I was just about to ask you, how do you evaluate? It sounds like one way is have check-in points just to see progress, like follow-ups for later. Any other tips on how to evaluate if you're trying to improve the way a team is doing something, you can just check along the way in progress points, but what other ways can you evaluate to see if things are getting better?
We let's say use an example of using Confluence as an example. So let's say we agree to use a template to create meetings or whatever we decide as a team. So I will wait, and sometimes I start navigating randomly on the teams and to see if they're doing it. And we create like a product spaces for each of the products, and we have templates for that. So sometimes if I click in different spaces, I can see they're using a template or they're actually totally opposite. Like you have the minimum structure, we cannot say level 1 structure for them to organize the information. But when you enter to the space, you see it's a flat organization, bunch of pages on the home page.
Sure.
So that is basically part of our effort. It's just go back and verify. Depending what you did, you need to set yourself, okay, we're asking the team to do this, but I'm going to, in 2 months, do kind of around the room check and see. It has to be the person who is pushing for the concept or the initiative, they need to have checking points. And after that, you apply corrective actions. If the deviation is small or too big, you need to apply corrective action as soon as possible. In that way, basically, you can go back to the main freeway, let's say.
Sure. So on a case-per-case basis, just make sure you have an evaluation system in place and follow through with it to follow
Yes.
up. Yeah. We've spent so much time going over tips, but we only have a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask if people are new to being on a distributed force, so not even some of their company had done it before, nobody had done this before, and the whole company is suddenly trying to become a distributed team. What's a top suggestion that you would give them to consider in that transition?
I think the first advice is to be have considerations for your coworkers. Before you saw them in the chair and you know the person is alive, breathing, and came the next day. Now that all of us are individuals, if you don't know or you don't hear about that person, just check, send a little message. Hey, how are you today? What are you doing? Or whatever. It has to be that communication. We need to worry about our coworkers more than ever. Is that person still breathing, right? So just check life checks. One of the things, the first thing you basically miss as soon as you go remote, you don't see that physically, you don't see that person anymore. So you need to be sure you can see that person virtually. Mm-hmm. So that's the first step. So just check, life check, be sure they are alive. The second one is, how is that person emotionally? Are they suffering? Is the suffering of maybe they don't have the resources? What kind of resources they have at the office they don't have anymore? They have printers, they have 2 monitors, mm-hmm. They have an elevator desk, or mm-hmm. They have a desktop phone. All of those elements make that person enter into the mindset that they were working. Suddenly moving to their house, maybe they don't have an office. They can close the door. Mm-hmm. So be more patient if you hear extra noises. Mm-hmm. Or you have a dog or cat barking, it's okay, man. Just try to make the meeting happening. But I think you need to be more flexible. You can not be rigid as it was at the office because the actual working environment is different. Mm-hmm. Maybe that person doesn't have a good internet, it's low, and get frozen. Yeah. Hey, let's forget about sharing screen or camera. Let's use the phone or use text messages or whatever. So the flexibility and adaptability is a key component when all the team moving from a controlled environment to an uncontrolled environment, where you are not aware of the situation of each individual. So that's kind of key. For us, it was very easy because the company was already using all notebooks, so everyone grab the computer and run. But I can see other companies, they don't have that because they were used to having special equipment.
Right.
So, and sometimes you need to help them economically too. Say, hey, let me pay for the difference and give you a faster internet or maybe another monitor. So
right.
It's part of the investment. You're not paying the building. You're not paying for extra stuff. You need to help a small piece of your building just sending to the homes of the people.
Right. You help all these people. You're going to help the business anyway. So
yes, exactly. Because they need to be productive. So it's like a carpenter without a hammer. So
great.
Yeah, he can use a rock to put a nail on the wood, but if you give a hammer, it's going to do it better and faster. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of one of the critical ones. The other advice is basically increase the way you communicate. So if you don't have a lot of communication before using newsletters, emails, or whatever, just start doing it. Start involving them on the communication channel because you are replacing those casual conversations. Mm-hmm. And also think about what was included in the casual conversations. Add that part of the social life as part of your communication. So that person is running a marathon. Yeah, let's send some pictures. So incorporate the social element on your standard communication so you can build that casual environment that was lost when they basically depart from the office and start working from the home.
Yep.
You start building that back virtually in some way. Can be a page, a newsletter, or phone call to talk about sports or whatever, happy hours, whatever you can do. But I think for us as a human being, the social element is very important.
So it sounds like for anyone that's new to this way of working, think about what you got because you were co-located and what you need to do when you don't have it. And I'm hearing over-communicate to make up for the loss of casual communications. Be compassionate, be empathetic, because everyone needs access to the same things and they don't have it anymore necessarily. So try to be open to that and be open to how people are adjusting, who they are as human beings. And I just love that the way that you're approaching this advice is from a human perspective. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. That's great.
And the first one you say over communicate, I think that you need to be careful and to say, don't take the newspaper approach. You print the newspaper and just drop it in the front door.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be sure that person is reading the newspaper. You need to be is over communicated in the bidirectional way.
Right.
So find a way to get a return. So find a way to see if that communication actually has a both way direction.
It goes back to your other point of anything that you're doing as a change, just make sure it's effective. Because if it's not, you don't need to do it. It's a good principle for teamwork in general. We're all trying to grow all the time, and we need some kind of way to track our progress and if we're actually improving.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Fabian, thank you so much. Is there, if people want to contact you, is there a good way to do that? Or do you want to just, maybe we tag you on Atlassian community with your handle, or
that's
the best way?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the best way. And basically LinkedIn or Atlassian community, that's good.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I have multiple profiles, so I hope you picked. But I think the one I use is Fabian Lopez, ACL mentor, Atlassian community. I add that on my name because I wrote articles in the community. So we can keep it with that profile. That's the one I always try to follow.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know these steps are going to be helpful for so many.
Contact me anytime, no problem.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.